Hello everyone, this is Diane, and I have finished these two 1950s fashion themed journals. They're not specifically sewing journals, although I did use sewing patterns on the front, but they're just fashion themed, and I used a lot of images from vintage magazines from the 1950s, which was really fun to get to do. I also used several digital kits, some pages, and some cards. I know the cards are from Sweet Pea Curiosities. Let me show you that. So you get a whole bunch. So these are the leftovers. So they look like this. So any cards you see like that are from Sweet Pea Curiosities. And the pages that I use, I will leave links to all of them. Now, one of these, the blue one, will be in the shop, and this journal was already reserved for my friend Angela, and she wanted to honor her mother with this journal. I'm going to go through this one first, and when I get to the pictures of her mother that are in here, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. And Angela just asked me if she wanted to reserve a fashion journal from this era for her mother, and just wanted to honor her mother with it. So I was glad to do that for her. So this was made with a red book cover, and I Mod Podged this pattern, and it's crinkled, which is what happens with Mod Podge. And I put this cotton fabric on the spine, and I put the back of the pattern envelope on the back. I added this little thing here to enable me to attach this, which was a dangle on a necklace, a vintage necklace that I got at the flea market. So this is just like a screw. It's got the base, you poke a hole, and then the base pokes through, and then you screw this on. So you could even remove that if you didn't like it. And I just put a bulb pin on it so I could put the dangle on it. Now, I've done a series through the making of these videos talking about my process for doing the pages, not necessarily the covers, but for the covers. See, the video I put up yesterday showed the finishing details on the pages, but even so, after I sewed the pages in, I still had some more finishing to do today. Like making this. This is part of the cover, though. This is part of the cover. And this I made with a vintage handmade dress that I had got at a flea market. And this is the hem. So you can see the hem tape here and the machine sewing. It's not a factory sewn dress, you can tell, but it was very nice quality. And I love the yellow because of the yellow here. This matches that so perfectly. So I used this vintage buckle, and I just threaded this piece through the buckle. So what you can do to fasten it is just put the fabric on and tie it. It wasn't long enough for a bow, so I just tie it in a knot that fits down in there, because the knot is kind of bulky. So it just fits down in there, and then you can slide the buckle to wherever you want it once you get it tied. This book has 3 signatures with 44 pages front and back in each signature. And I forgot to put a book plate here. It just looks so nice and clean. I'll put something there. I used a lot of vintage magazine images, as I said, and I showed all of that, most of that, in my process videos. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it, but this is one of them that I glued to vellum and made a tuck spot. I used cut-off pieces to include for journaling, and this is one of the cards. I added some lace to the front of each signature, and then additional lace is added in there. I did a video where I showed decorating the pages. So this page has stenciling and stamping. This is one of the digitals. I have two digitals that only consisted of 5 pages each, I think, and I divided them up between the two journals, and they are from Charm Studios. This is one of them from Charm Studios. Stationery page. This is just music manuscript paper, and this is from a 1950s magazine. And then I used fussy cut digitals from, I think it's Merri Arts, M-E-R-R-I, but I will link it below. And this is from a knitting book from the 50s. And this is just a cluster embellishment that I had in my stash. And I added the word wonderful. These skirts are from a vintage magazine, and they are also glued to vellum. And I made this tag from a cut-off piece. Gave you a spot to journal on the back. And then I tucked in this long bridge tally card, vintage. And there's a video also where I talked about making these fabric flips that I designed to look like a fabric swatch. So you get the swatches of fabric, and then the tab at the top is fabric instead of a card. And I added some buttons or trim to the top of each one. And I added a little bit of lace to some of them. Then underneath you can glue paper to write on, or you can glue photos or whatever you'd like to do there. And I did some pages also on video where I stamped these retro looking designs and added the digital fussy cuts. These are pictures of Angela's mother, and I just want to share a little bit. She said she didn't mind if I shared with you. She was the first African American woman on Columbus, Ohio's 10 TV channel back in the 50s. She was a model, singer, and acted on the station and in local plays, which is mostly unheard of during that time. My mom sang with the well-known Nancy Wilson and was supposed to tour with her, but found out she and her husband were expecting, and she canceled her plans. She also taught Sunday school at the church she attended. And then she says, my mommy was such a lovely person, loved by all, and she passed in March of 2017. So I'm sorry that you lost your beautiful and talented mother, Angela, and I hope that this book will help honor her memory as you write in it. And I also want to ask you to let me know if you want me to just leave this paper clipped in there and you can do what you want with it, or do you want me to glue it somewhere, make it into a card or a tag that I can stick in a pocket, or just glue it to a page and make a pocket out of it. I can cut it and use it in 2 places. I would like you to let me know what you want done with that piece. This is from a scrapbook album page, and I had holes in it, and I just threaded some ribbon through it, and it's glued here. This does flip open in here, but the rest of it is not glued. That's another one from Charm Studios. Here, I did this on one of the last videos showing the final details. It might have been yesterday's video, but this is just another image from an old magazine and some scraps of paper and some little paper flowers and a vintage index card. Vintage lined paper here from a kind of like a ledger book, but it doesn't have ledger lines, but it was one of those old books. Vintage magazine. Did some stamping there on this dyed paper. More images from magazines. This was torn in the corner, so I added this strip. You can see the tear right there. Just added a strip of leftover paper here and some punch outs. This ledger paper that I used to print on the back of all of the digitals, I believe, is from Nostalgia Graphic Land, but I can't remember for sure. I just have it in I have a folder of papers that I can use to print on the backs of digitals. I love this page with her bright pink flowers in her shirt and the bright pink starburst that I stamped. And then I stamped this graphic 45 stamp, "A girl should be two things, classy and fabulous, Coco Chanel." And here is one of the digital cards, and I used these vintage photo corners that came out of an old photo album. They actually had photos in the corners, and when I disassembled the photo album, I saved the red photo corners, and I'm so glad I did because they're perfect in this journal. So here you can take that out, you can write on the back, you can write in this space, you can write all over the white page. I made a fabric pocket in each signature and added some vintage lace. This is a giant tag that I used. I put some wallpaper on there from a wallpaper sample book that I got recently, just about a week ago, I think. And another magazine, and here is an Anna Griffin border. It's a sticky border, and then this is a stamp. This is one of those, I told you I got some new stamps and dies from Amazon, and it is from, I forgot. But I asked if you wanted to see them, and you said yes, so that's one of them. But I will do a video. I want to play around with them. Now that I'm done with these journals, I'll take some time to play around with my new things, and so I have something to show you as I show you what I bought. From the knitting book, and I just collaged some extra pieces on here, and you can journal on those little spots. This is a vintage advertisement for Avon Cosmetics. Now this is also on vellum, and I kept finding as I turned the pages that she would pop up off the page because her elbow wasn't glued down, and then I would think it was sticking to the page behind it, and I would try to separate it, and then I would turn it and realize I'm not supposed to separate that, so I didn't want that to keep happening. So I did glue her elbow down right there, and I'm hoping that these will still fit in there. Ah, yes. So this is the other digital kit that I got, and also 4 or 5 pages, and it got printed onto cardstock because the cardstock paper was in my printer and I didn't know it, and it was an extra page anyway, so I just cut it into a tag and I added a pink guest check. So I glued down her elbow, and I glued down the tip of the umbrella for stability. And then, of course, it's glued here and here. So if you're wanting to journal in this, and this is in your way, you can just open up the bulb pin and remove it. And then when you want to, you can put the bulb pin back on and have it. But it might be in your way while you're trying to journal. This is the second signature, and I just glued that to cardstock. And I used another piece of cardstock to glue this image to. I did this on a video, and then I stamped on that tab, which was also part of that video. And this has a wide lace with a little floral ribbon on it. I used primarily reds and light yellows with accents of brown in this journal, and black. But I used blue here. Another stamp. This is one of the Charm Studio pages. This is from a book, and I glued on a cluster that I had made a while ago with some little leftover bits, and it says, "But it is fun." That came out of a book, a vintage book. And on the back of this page, I didn't want this part, the other side of it, so I glued strips of leftover scrapbook paper all across that page, and then I added this as a pocket with this tucked in for cleansing your skin. And there's another fabric sampler fabric flip with the buttons and some lace. I meant to put the other one, the other signature, in the center of this book, but that's okay, because I put trim instead of buttons on the center one. Pink polka dot ribbon there. She kind of reminded me of the pictures that you sent me, Angela. That's why I included her. This is a vintage receipt, by the way. And this is a strip that I cut off from that printable that I cut down to make a card. I didn't want to throw that away, so it became the decorative strip there. These ladies are in their pajamas. And this says stamp of approval. Another card that you can pull out and write on. Fabric pocket with some vintage lace again. Wallpaper here. The Anna Griffin border. And a stamped label. And this is the other side where I added those strips of paper, and I said in the other video that I loved how these brown tinted instead of black and white images of coats from the Spiegel catalog of it wasn't the 50s, I think it was the 60s, but they look like they could have been worn in the 50s. But I love how this color goes with this paper here. And I added this. This was a magazine article about turbans from the 50s. This advertisement for shampoo, Palmolive shampoo, is actually from the 30s. It came from a 1930s magazine, but it looks like it could have been in the 50s, so I put it on here. Now, we think of Palmolive as a dish soap or a body soap. I don't believe they make shampoo anymore, and I never even thought about the name Palmolive, but the advertisement, this page, showed like an artist rendering of oil dripping out of a palm leaf. So I'm assuming they actually got oils from palm leaves, at least in the beginning, to make their products, which I never thought about before. And here we have another lady cut from a vintage magazine, and the garbage truck is here, and yes, I took my garbage out last night. I panicked for a minute. Okay, here's a Yahtzee scorecard and a cutoff piece and a white alterations card. Third signature, excuse me, has this pretty lady in red. I have a lot of black and white images. The older magazines had more black and white than colored, but I did have this one, and I liked her on the bright yellow with the brown, and then I had this little negative from a punched flower that I thought added just the right touch of color. And then I tucked in this tag, which we made on a video. It's from a Workbasket magazine, and then one of the digital cards. I love this satin red trim with little embroidered elements on it. This is the other digital that I can't remember who it was. There's a couple in my head, and I don't want to say the wrong one. Here's a stationery piece with a rose on it. And this was from a vintage magazine. It was an illustration from a story. And I had this in my stash, so I included that in here. And another digital card. And the last flip, with lace here and then a little bit here. I added some elements to the backs of these pages where I stamped because it showed through, and a lot of times I don't mind that, but in this case I didn't really want it. Let me see. So that's why this is there, and there's something in the first signature too. Oh, I've got to glue her down better to the cardstock. I didn't put anything in there. So let me tuck an index card in there. I don't want to use a yellow one. Now someone asked me, someone who's been watching my videos asked if it's a rule to put something in every pocket, and it's not a rule because there are no rules in junk journals. And a lot of people don't fill every pocket, but it's just my practice to fill most of the pockets. I don't fill every single one. In these I did, but I don't always. But I just like to give more journaling space, and I have so many supplies, I might as well put them in pockets. And also just to let someone know that it is a pocket in some cases. This is a giant tag I made with vintage pattern tissue. This came from the Ward's catalog, Montgomery Ward's, that I had, and digital punched out flowers. It was a fun collage. I did some stamping. We did that in a video. Some Simplicity fabric here to help make that pocket. And this pretty lady, I just glued her to off-white cardstock and then cut around her with a large border around her. And you can write on her if you want to, or you can glue her down, make her into a tuck spot. Did your mother wear shoes like this, Angela? My mother was a tall lady. She was 5'10". My mother is still alive, but she's not 5'10" anymore. She's going to be 88 next month. And she always dressed beautifully. She made her own clothing. She made our clothes. So I could write about my own mother in this journal. Here we go with a pocket that is part of the dies and stamps that I just got. And I was going to put something behind this shoe to help it stand off the page, but I decided I really liked it this way. Just these 3 different black and white patterns, because the shoe is patterned. I love those shoes. I wish I could have had them. There's a card in there and a canasta score sheet that is quite large, so there's lots of room for writing, and my signature is on the back of that. So that is Angela's journal, and I feel very honored that she trusted me to make a journal to honor her mother. And there we go. This is the one that will be in the shop. So I didn't say at the outset of the video, I'm going to put this in the shop at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The day you see this, which will be Wednesday, July 19th. So this one was made with a blue book cover, and it was a vintage cover. One of those had like a linen fabric. It was about photography. You can see 2 little dots that are left there from the title, and you can actually see, because it was debossed, and it was called Photography Is. So if you look closely, you can see that there, and then it just said ... But I used a vintage 1950s sewing pattern again, Mod Podged it on, and again there are some wrinkles in it, and it was from Butterick. And there's the back of the pattern. I even had the flap to glue down to this one. I didn't have it for the other one. And this one has a little bit of a different vintage necklace dangle, but it's the same kind of a style. They're both so pretty. And I love this blue and white fabric. And then I had this white ribbon with black, it looks like stitches, but it's just printed on there. I thought it all worked well with this. And on both of these, I added some trim to the top and bottom just because it just looked so stark. And this one, I love the ribbon on this one too. It is a flocked, well, because it's dotted Swiss, it's flocked polka dots. And it's mainly blue, but it does, it's variegated into green and a little bit of purple. And it has this blue vintage buckle that I got at a flea market. Same types of pages and elements, and same number of pages. So I'm just going to show you. And there is this, I use the same piece of stationery in each signature. There's a cluster there that says memories. That's the knitting book. So again, I wanted to cover the back side of that page, and I used strips of cut off papers. And then I did talk about this in a previous video, but I will share again. All of these images were from one article, A Little Veiling, and we'll see the rest of that phrase on the other side of the page. So this shows different ways you can use veils, veiling fabric, or it's not fabric, it's just kind of like a tool, but the holes are bigger and it's usually a little bit stiff. As a filmy, you can use it as a filmy stole clipped to the top of a bodice, and this one is for a chignon and head-hugging flattery. So elegant looking. And I used a little bit of soft tulle that I had to put a bow in that. I like this fabric flip with this Simplicity Lady fabric on it, and the blues, and then there's some blue and brown here. So in this book, this one only had blues on the front, but different shades of blue. So it's mostly blues and browns with other accent colors. This one did have yellow with the red, so I got to bring in a different color there. But it does have reds and other colors in it too. Just the primary colors are the blues and the browns. These ladies are glued to cardstock. Now this one I stamped, but the paper was dark, and so it didn't show through. Very, very little bit it showed through, but I didn't cover it. This has a little stamped and embossed piece. I think that was a Kathy Holden stamp. I just had it in my stash. A girl should be two things, classy and fabulous. We already saw that stamp in the other journal. And this one has silver, which also, they're vintage. They didn't come out of an album. They were not used. But I have, like, I think it was last year, I kept finding vintage photo corners. So I have black and khaki and silver and gold and white. And then I got some of the red ones out of that old album. So I've got quite a collection of the vintage photo corners. So I need to use them more. I'm glad I thought to use them in this. There is a fabric pocket, and this card made with wallpaper. It's on an old, or it's not an old, but it's a large shipping tag. And this is a K & Company sticker border. Here's the other side of that page, and so it's a little veiling, a lot of glamour. And I added these two ladies, which are also showing different ways to use veiling, and I just left them open, one on the side, one on the top. Put some little tags in there. And then the back side has one more way to use veiling. This is not a pocket. So this page, I didn't mention this, but this was music manuscript paper, but it was for guitars, so this is where you would put your guitar chart, make your notations on your guitar chart. I love that pattern. You'd have to have a wasp waist to wear that. This lady sitting on a table, so I put her on vellum. And here's another part of that digital that I cut to make cards. This is one of the finishing touches I had to do. I had the blue card tucked in there, but I had never made a journal card out of it, so I had to find an image and a background page to finish that up. You may notice I had said in a video that I was going to put envelopes. I already picked out envelopes to go in the centers, but there are no envelopes in the centers of the signatures. I had such a hard time sewing the signatures into these journals for some reason, and the envelopes were giving me fits. So I just took the envelopes out and just went without them and got it done. So, no envelopes. So on this book page, I added a little pocket there, just to put some color on that black and white page. And I left this so that you can do your own collage on it. I love this fabric flip with this little bit of kind of a pleated lace. It was a scrap that I had. And the blue and brown fabrics look good together. And then it's on this paper that looks like it could be a foulard print that they make shirts out of. Foulard, it's just a tiny print, and it's not a floral. This has a velvet ribbon in it. I don't know if it's real velvet. I don't think so. It's probably polyester. I think I got it at Hobby Lobby. She reminds me of Andorra on Bewitched. Did you watch Bewitched? Is that who she looks like to you? This is another illustration from a magazine, from a story in a magazine. I added a merchandise tag to that one. Oh, I didn't even realize that they were back to back like that. That's cute. More Simplicity Ladies on that pocket. This is a different digital. I might have gotten that from Pinterest. So this is something different. I wanted to include this, and it was too long for the book, and I didn't want to cut it, so I glued it to colored copy paper. It's not cardstock, it's just a paper that you'd put in your printer. And I folded it. This is all glued down, but it's glued down as a pocket. And then you can unfold it and then fold that up and write on that. Fold that back down. Tuck these back in the pocket. You can write on them. And then you can... How did I have this? I guess I had the paper clip over here to hold it down. And here's that piece of paper that I added to the bottom of the book page as a pocket, and I put her on just to embellish it. And then this card is in there. I love the little bedroom slipper there. I should say boudoir slipper. That's what it looks like, right? Another lady with a turban from that turban article. This happy lady from a 1950s magazine. And alterations tag. She's on vellum to create that tuck spot. There's just a couple of the digital cards in there. Some of this dyed paper has a pattern on it, the doily pattern. This is from a Vogue coloring book. This doesn't exactly, it looks more like 60s than 50s, but it was from the 50s, and it's loungewear, nightwear, nightgown. This paper had some tears in it, so I covered, there was like a hole right there. I covered it with that, and then there was a tear up here. Well, you can see it. It's not a big one. It's right there. So I think I wrapped this around. Yeah. And you can see where the little hole is right there. I take tears and rips in papers as an opportunity to embellish. I don't think the paper's ruined if there's a tear in it. This is a fabric washi here. It's a slip that was shown in a magazine. A fabric pocket with a wallpaper tag and a canasta score sheet. And this was already in my stash, and I thought it was perfect for here. She's washing her face. I don't know, oh, Velvet Suds Ivory. So I think there was a tear here, so I covered up that with those two pieces. And I love this lady. I wonder what she's thinking. It's an ad for Dorothy Gray skincare. Trust Dorothy Gray. Is she looking at you and saying, trust me? And there is this journal card in there, which is quite lovely. And this was the text that came right here on this ad. So it talks about Dorothy Gray creams, and I added some tulle in that also. Kind of mimics the tulle in her dress. It looks like it has tulle. And another one of those pockets. I used double-sided paper to make these pockets because you have to fold the flap up so you see both sides of the paper. And I used this embossed cardstock and cut a circle out of it. And I used some vintage netting from a hat right there. It might be hard for you to see it. It's got the little flocked bumps on it, and a vintage hat advertisement there from a catalog. And this is a card that goes, this die came with that pocket die, and the little reinforcement came with the die also, which is really cute. And there's my signature. So this was something else I had to finish up today. I had to add something to that tag. I had a few things. Well, another thing I had to do was figure out the closure. So that's it for these journals. They are done, and I hope you like them. And this one will be in my shop at 6 p.m. tonight, Wednesday, July 19th, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for this journal. Thank you so much for watching, and the next journals I'm going to make are going to be also from the 50s, but more of a cooking theme, and one of those is already spoken for also. And then I want to get into maybe doing something that is sort of like a stash buster. Let's move some stuff out and have fun with some quick and easy journals. So I don't know if they'll be wire bound or sewn in like this, or don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm kind of thinking that that's what I might do once I'm done with the cooking journals. Thanks so much for your attention. Follow the link below to go to my shop. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Leave me a comment. I love to hear what you have to say. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a creative day today. Bye-bye.